Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digitalk brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here, Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Our viewers, we want to thank you for your time and your patience in particular. My name is Norman Tumihimbise and I happen to be the host of this Afro-Caribbean link. We must apologize and definitely our viewers are parents. Yeah, I want to ask Mr. Burke, Rickford, to just say hello for now to our viewers.
Good day, good morning, or good night, wherever you part of the world you are. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to talk with you.
Great. I will ask our producers to help us play the video that shows the human rights violations in Guyana, and then thereafter we shall discuss the state of human rights abuses in Guyana.
South Africa, the demolition of homes and communities, and the government here would have signed all sorts of treaties. I don't know whether they don't read them, whether they don't pay attention to them in terms of the rights of people and the rights of people.
This was a scene at KNV Moko Arcade today as the Ministry of Housing, accompanied by members of the Riot Squad of the Guyana Police Force, moved to demolish the structures occupied by squatters who failed to accept the compensation offered by the government. The Housing Ministry said the land on which the persons are on form part of the construction of the Eccles to Great Diamond Highway. Shots were fired by the police and persons were arrested, while angry residents threw bricks, bottles and flammable objects at the police. At one point, the excavator caught fire.
What did them do? Like me, what's out no more? It does everything damaged. Them telling me to come in one by one. Them saying that we house ward. In these hard times, when you can pay 6 million or 5 million or 2 million for these things they know. Then what's expensive? Nails expensive, board expensive, everything gone high. We bed broke up. Everything broke up. What I sleep? I need then the rain wet me up. It's right take is the road. I'm a homeless girl now. Now I'm a homeless girl.
And this is totally wrong what the people doing. This is totally wrong. These people need to give me justice. 20-something years now we family live over here, boss. Actually 30 years now. Where we going?
The area was surrounded by the police and housing officials who were executing the exercise. They first started by removing the bridge and then this house and business place. The owner was standing her ground against the demolition when she was arrested and dragged through the mud by the police. For several minutes, she and the police wrestled until she decided to go. Moments later, her house came crashing with the police and the housing officials.
Why can't they meet in a civilized way?
Things got heated as the exercise continued, with residents pelting the police who returned fire. Opposition MP Roysdale Ford, Coretta MacDonald and other MPs were on hand to see the destruction.
What we see happening here is transgression to the max, oppression to the max, and I'm saying people will have to stand up at some point for their rights, because we cannot allow history to keep repeating itself.
There's more than just a possibility. I believe that there's a high probability that legal proceedings will have to be instituted by the people who would have been suffering, by the families who have been suffering this sort of demolition and complete destruction to the property. And it's just simply beyond that level. I believe that serious questions have been raised and we will examine them. We're in the process of gathering a number of pieces of information and documents that go towards the legal ownership of this land as to who actually owns it, whether this is in fact land for which the government, even if they want to build a road, it should be subject to the constitution, should be subject to the payment of compensation to persons who are the owners of this land. So we are currently in the process of examining those issues, and we will definitely be instituting proceedings if it is found that it is necessary to do so. But in my view, having regard to what I've seen here, what I've learned over the last couple of days, this is a serious case that will require some degree of legal representation on the part of these people who suffered, and to them in terms of the rights of people and the rights of persons to live even in homes that are not necessarily on legal land owned by them.
This is what is left of the houses when the exercise was completed, as persons contemplate their next move and start all over again.
In particular, we want to apologize for some breach of this network. It's just unstable, but as you understand, that's typical of Africa. But also, before we now dive deep into the human rights violations, we want to ask Mr. Rickford to briefly tell us who Rickford Burke is, because it's taken us some time to find out who this activist is, because when we're trying to follow you and what you are doing, we happen to identify you as one of the freedom fighters for Guyanese. May you please give our viewers, especially those in Africa and other continents, who Rickford Burke is. To you.
Thank you.
Rickford.
Thank you. Well, I'm Guyanese, I was born in Ireland, while I was also a Christian, and I have one son. I have a deep connection to Africa. The Guyanese people indeed have a deep connection to Africa. Indeed, the PNC, People's National Congress government, was very much involved in the liberation of South Africa, worked, sent funding, worked in the international community, all the international forums, United Nations, Non-Aligned Movement, Commonwealth, for the abolition of apartheid in South Africa. The People's National Congress government as well worked for back the struggle for independence in Angola, as well as Namibia. As a matter of fact, I remember as a child seeing then President Desmond Hoyt sending a peacekeeping, sending Guyana police officers Namibia just before their independence as a peacekeeping force. So we have a deep history with Africa, and we thank you guys for we had a government that was conducting ethnic cleansing in Guyana, firing all the blacks on the service, taking away lands, prosecuting people maliciously. Every time this particular party, which is an East Indian-led party, they have a few tokens that they put there for cosmetics, but every time this particular party government, they conduct a war on African Guyanese, the people of African descent. And this is 2002, and we will not tolerate it. Guyana on the brink of a civil war. As far as not only my assessment, several persons have been saying that, made an assessment in a document or correspondence to the United States Vice President. And we want to call on the people of Africa to support the people of African descent and Guyanese generally who do not support this oppressive regime.
Okay, I would want to, because we are two hosts in this show, I would want to ask my colleague to pose some question to you. So we shall be interacting, three of us, myself, my colleague, and definitely you yourself.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Rickford, so first of all, thank you for your time to be with us today. You did give a bit of a background into why you founded the Caribbean Guyana Institute for Democracy, and I wanted you to highlight a bit of the objectives, what we intend to achieve, and how much thus far you have achieved, if the situation has improved since you established that, or what change is it trying to bring about in the situation of Guyana, especially in this period where the people's rights have been grossly violated?
Norman, I can't hear it.
Really? Let him repeat the question. I think he has...
Yes, what I'm trying to say, Mr. Burke, is you did tell us you are the president of the Caribbean Guyana Institute for Democracy. I wanted you to highlight a bit of what are the objectives and what have you tried to achieve so far, especially in this period of gross human rights violations. What is it that it contributes? What role is it playing to make sure that justice is served in this process? We just saw a video of the people's homes being demolished. What is this Institute for Democracy going to do, or what is it doing in this situation?
Well, I started to say that we started off with the name Guyana Institute for Democracy, but because we were so effective in our advocacy to shape or conceptualize a foreign policy that is pragmatic with Guyana. So we challenge the government of Guyana all the time. We expose their atrocities. We support projects that's defending people, whether it's advocating for human rights and human dignity. We support those on the ground in Guyana. So we have a vast portfolio agenda we're playing, and it also includes interactions here with the United States. Recently, we had a public meeting, Guyana's community meeting here in New York. Attorney General and expressed concerns about racism and the atrocities stretched to me personally, my life personally. She even warned the government. And I think it's extraordinary advocacy, number one, when you can get the Attorney General of a state to come to your nationals meeting, number one. And number two, it's extraordinary when you have Attorney General of a state and now the minority leader of the United States House of Representatives expressing concerns for the atrocities, the racism, and the corruption in Guyana. So I think we are doing the right thing. We are pursuing all of these matters here in the United States and in Guyana on the ground. A number of our members have been threatened. My life is threatened every day by the government and their supporters. We have members of our board of directors whose lives are threatened every day. Even the Attorney General was threatened by the government of Guyana when she expressed concern for what is happening there. She called for a Justice Department investigation. She was attacked. She was threatened. The government of Guyana went to Republicans, Trump Republicans, to attack her.
Treating the people, or you yourself, because you have mentioned that your life has been in danger, you have received numerous threats. In fact, I saw that there has been a time where you have been put on the wanted list, one of the people who are wanted by the government of Guyana. Has there been any change with the time you have interfered, you have interfaced with the leadership in the United States where you are based? Has there been any change? Has the government changed the way it is treating you and the people of Guyana?
Well, I'm not particularly concerned about me.
Of the United States, the mayor you mentioned, you also mentioned the Attorney General. I think some of the congressmen have been seen also addressing some of these issues. Has there been a change on the way the Guyana government is approaching these issues?
Minimally, and like I said, I'm not concerned about myself. I'm protected. The government has been less blatant in its racism. I'm hearing you. I can't hear you. I can see that you're talking, but I'm not hearing you.
I'm saying that your network was
I'm
working, but now we can hear you very well, sir. You can continue.
Yes, so I'm saying now the government is trying to go into black villages to give them little handouts here and there, little cards to the shores of a road or clean a trench. But not anything substantial. As a matter of fact, I understand that the United States government is going to call a summit on Guyana sometime shortly, not sure when, because we in the diaspora have been asked that the United States government must change its policy. It's shocking that we have all this atrocity happening in Guyana, and the United States State Department seems to be on normal footing with Guyana. It's unacceptable to us, and we have been pursuing this matter with our members of Congress. And now we have our member of Congress is the minority leader, the Democratic leader in Congress. He has expressed, the president has been requesting to meet with him. He has not met with the president of Guyana, but he has said that he's interested in a meeting with all the members of Congress who represent Guyana. There are about 700,000 Guyanese in the United States, almost 500,000 alone in the New York tri-state area. And so we're hoping that we will have a meeting shortly that would comprise the United States Department, the Congressional Black Caucus, the diaspora leaders, government of Guyana, the opposition, and civil society in Guyana, for us to ventilate the issues that we're talking about, and for the United States government to help start a course in Guyana.
Before PPP took power, or it's been that has been the trend in all governments that Guyana has had?
No, the PPP government is a government. The philosophy of the People's Progressive Party is promote East Indian supremacy. Their East Indian government have African black people in the government, but the underlying governance philosophy of the government is East Indian supremacy. It's almost similar to apartheid South Africa. You heard Senior Counsel Royce Ford, who is a member of Parliament and the Shadow Attorney General, saying what happened in Mocha is a reflection of apartheid South Africa. When I was growing up in the 90s in Guyana, late 80s, I was in school, and I did not know anything for racism. I went to Hindu college. I learned Hindi. I went to the temple and prayed with my friends. I celebrated all of the Muslim and Hindu holidays. We did not know about racism until this government came to power in 1991 and started ethnic triumphalism and ethnic cleansing and started attacking black people. Before I was born, we had a race war in Guyana, a civil war, created by this particular political party, where they were killing out black people, burning their villages and towns. And it seems as though that's what they want to do. I don't believe they want to live in harmony in the same country with us. And if that's the case, maybe the world will have to decide whether or not we can live together and we should have two separate countries. I am not advocating for that, but I am saying that is clearly the policy of the government, to separate us and to treat black people as second-class citizens. And we will not stand for it in 2022. If they want to take an island and go and live there with their supporters, they can do that. But the world must not allow an apartheid regime in the Caribbean, in South America, in the Western Hemisphere.
Is it the land question? Because the video we have played previously, as we started this show, it was showing the demolitions of the citizens' houses and the rest, and the people that are complaining. But also when you listen on to the other side, one of the victims was saying that they were giving them less compensation. Is the issue of human rights violation purely as a result of the land question, as so many countries have been? Because when you look at the Zimbabwe, when you look at South Africa itself, most of the conflicts were as a result of the land question. Is it the same case in Guyana?
Absolutely. I think the government is really taking a page from that apartheid policy and from what Jim Crow racists in America did. The government wants to take away prime lands owned by black people. As a matter of fact, even to go to the Minister of Housing, who's black, but carrying out the racist policies of the government, announced that they will take away for the lands owned by black cooperative societies, black groups. Guyana is 83,000 square miles. Only 20% of Guyana is occupied. Why on earth's name is this government taking away the lands of black people? They want to dispossess us. They want us they want to make us second-class citizens, and they want to stifle us economically. They want to move development of the country ahead without black people. Now, let's go to the case of Bucca. The first thing is that the government is claiming those are reserved lands. It's in dispute because that village was bought by the slaves. Blood, sweat, and tears of the slaves, our foreparents, bought that village. And now the government is tearing their descendants apart out of that village. Now, the people are saying, if the government wants to build a road, that is fine. They can build it. Now, these people's homes were not in the path of this road. That's the first thing we must establish. Second, they were saying, okay, they're willing to move, but they want to be justly compensated. So some of them have livestock. They want to know what should happen to the livestock. The government says sell them. Then the government went in and killed their livestock and buried them. Then the business people are saying, okay, you want us to move. Where will we establish our business? The government does not want to negotiate with these people. And then the government is saying they are anti-development. They want to stymie development, which is not true. These people want to know how they would live. So the government has identified two areas, one village by the name of farm and the other by the name of selling, where they can go. If these families don't want to go into those areas, they don't have a choice, right? They'll be left. So the government is putting them in these two villages. If you have a business, the government is forcing you into this residential village. Where would you establish your business? The time you have to move, and when you construct your home, how put it to school? People who have farms, the government is giving them land, allegedly giving them land way up on the highway 34 way. No land has been allocated for these farms, and the government flooded all these people's farms with their produce.
Occupied the land illegally. So what do you have to say? Could it be the government that is right, or it is it's the government that is wrong, and perhaps these people own the land legally? Who is right and who is wrong here, in particular when it comes to the land question and such operations in regards to what is happening in your country?
Well, first of all, that is in dispute. That is ancestral. The village council, the village that governs the village, is saying that is ancestral lands bought by the slaves. At least there should be some policy that governs these ancestral lands. They're historic. Then they should not be violated. That should not be violated. The rights of those people to occupy those lands should not be violated. So one, the country needs a policy on ancestral lands owned by black people. Second, even if these people were in government reserve, even if this is government reserve, you should have a policy to address it. You should negotiate with these people, have legal representation. Ordinarily, nobody could go and put somebody out of their homes. If I am in some...
Is a petition that you had addressed to the Vice President of the USA, and that's Kamala Harris. I want to ask you, what is the role of the US government in this whole saga? Why do you bring it on board as the Guyanese every now and again?
Democratically elected government, as far as I'm concerned, the results that install them says that it don't reflect the will of the people. The Trump administration installed this government. This political party, the PPP, has a strategy to displace the former Granger regime, and that strategy involved getting lobbyists to mobilize Republican lawmakers in this country to support their bid for the government. And so the Trump administration fully supported that political party, and in my view, included the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador, who has not been reassigned. I was just saying that the ambassador has been identified, but hasn't gotten congressional approval yet, to my knowledge. Now, this government seemed to only respond to U.S. They see the U.S., at least the Trump administration and this current one, to some extent, as the godparents they run to for everything. For instance, they complain to the U.S. government about us. They want the U.S. government to curb our free speech, which is not going to happen. As against the Constitution. They don't believe black people have a right to speak. And so we come to that by petitioning our own elected officials to intervene in Guyana. So to the extent that the United States seem to have oversized influence on Guyana, it is because this People's Progressive Party government invited the government to almost co-govern the U.S., to almost co-govern Guyana. And we believe that the United States is a superpower, major influence on the hemisphere, and also Guyana is in. I think the United States has very keen interest in Guyana because of its strategic national interest. I mean, Russia is right in Venezuela, carrying bombers and influencing policy in Venezuela, right next to Guyana, on the doorstep, in the backyard of the United States. Also, Guyana is one of the largest oil producing countries in the world right now, and the United States may need Guyana for its energy security, especially now that Russia is being isolated internationally. So Guyana has strategic interest, strategic value to the United States, and the United States has an interest in ensuring that democracy is maintained, their rule of law is maintained. And
question for you, and thereafter we shall definitely now go into the comments that we have here. There are some comments that might need your response before we also call it a day. Roger.
Yes, thank you so much. Mr. Rickford, I have a question. You did mention that the PPP government was installed by the Trump administration. Now, if I have my facts straight, the PPP government has been, the PPP party particularly, has been in leadership from 1992 to 2015 when David Granger became president. It has been there for that long, and then it came back in 2020. Why would you conclude that it is the Trump administration that installed this government of PPP, the current one?
Okay, first of all, let me say, during the period you mentioned there, I'm happy you mentioned that it was in government from 1992 to 2015. They conducted a genocide against black people, killed literally through extrajudicial killings and a death squad that they formed, the government's formed, killed over 1,400 black people. They believe were part of a resistance movement, and they labeled them criminals. There has never been any justice or investigation. That's number one. Number two, the government was inside the Trump administration. Announced there was some prolonged period when we had a dispute that was going towards the election. During that time, the Trump administration, through Secretary of State Pompeo, forced the Elections Commission to declare the results. And even before the results were cleared, levied sanctions against the Granger administration. And like I said, the chief elections officer at the time said in report with the final results that the United States demanded be declared do not represent the will of the people. That is in the final result. If you are to look at the declaration of the results of the 2020 election, says that results do not reflect the will of the people. And the Trump administration that forced the Elections Commission to declare that particular result was challenged in court. Because Mr. Granger was served late with the petition, the government petitioned the court to throw it out, and the court threw it out. The courts in Guyana, we're gradually losing confidence in the court. The courts, members of the judiciary, seem to want to coerce the nation, some of them, and also issue rulings that facilitate the government's agenda.
I wanted to understand. Now, from the 1992 to 2015, that was the PPP. And now the PNC, I think, with former President David Granger, in the process from 2015 to 2020, how did the administration of this former president try to do something to counter this kind of vice of racism in Guyana?
Yes, he did. The president had a policy called social cohesion, where he promoted harmony, national harmony, but at every step the PPP government undermined it. The People's Progressive Party undermined it, because as part of their electoral strategy, it's racism, because they use racism to mobilize their votes. The country is almost even in terms of East Indians and blacks. You have 39% East Indians, about 30% blacks. You have mixed race. 20%, you have Amerindians, about 10%, and then a smaller percentage would be like Chinese and Europeans and so on. But the PP uses racism and ethnic supremacy as a means of political mobilization to keep their electoral bloc intact. So they would, for instance, the vice president went to Berbice, which is their stronghold, and told them that the black members of the military and police would rape their women if they allowed Granger.
Government had changed in 2015, but the situation seems to have now worsened. I think it goes back to the discussion on whether these violations are as a result of PPP's capture of power. And is that true that perhaps then you had some bit of relief before these people came in power in 2015?
Absolutely. And these violations are always targeted at black people. This government is very uneasy with black people. Like I said, they want to implement East Indian ethnic supremacy, and they know that the black population would reject that. So what they do, they use the Guyana police force to abuse African Guyanese. And admittedly, the police force is mostly made up of black people. But what they do is they select leaders who are compliant with them, complicit with them. They pay them a lot of money. Some of them are connected to the underworld, the criminal underworld. And so the government used them to stifle dissent, to shoot down people. Some protesters in the town of Linden, which is the second largest town in Guyana, were protesting in 2011, for 2014, I think, for electricity increase, protesting against electricity increase. And the government sent police up there and shot and killed some of them. So this government has always been against the rights of black people, even since they came into power. Every time black people go out on the road and protest, either racism or shooting of a black man, they send police to shoot them. And these young men in the Guyana police force don't want to shoot their kith and kin, their cousins and their aunts, but their leaders. This police commissioner who's there now was in charge of the police division in Linden when these protesters were shot and killed. And what did he get? No accountability, no justice. He was promoted to police commissioner by this government because the government knows that they could always get him to go and do their bidding. And we are conducting an international campaign for these members of the Guyana police force and members of the government to be held accountable. And we want to appeal to the people of Africa to petition their governments to go to the international forums and demand accountability, expose the racism, expose the apartheid governance in Guyana, and expose the atrocities and human rights abuses of members of the security forces.
Before my colleague also reads the other comment, I want to ask you, you mentioned about international organizations, but I also would want to ask you, as far as I know, and as per your CV, you are a lawyer by profession. Have you people tried to petition the International Criminal Court or the ICJ in regards to these violations in your country before you even begin petitioning UAC as the superpower? Have you tried to petition the other courts, international courts?
Well, I know there have been discussions. There are several petitions before the Inter-American Human Rights Commission on these violations. I'm not sure. I know the government has been frustrating that process. As a matter of fact, the vice president himself, Barjack, has been named as a defendant in the disappearance and possible murder of a young man by the name of Collie Wills. I know currently there's a petition being drawn up to send to the Inter-American Human Rights Commission with regard to the atrocities of Maka. I'm not sure that the International Criminal Court is involved in atrocities in Guyana. That is something that the Granger administration failed to address, and I've criticized them for it. I think the evidence, the extrajudicial killings by the Jagdeo government should have been submitted to prosecutors at the International Criminal Court. There should have been a commission of inquiry in Guyana. And like I said, for 5 years, the Granger administration was in power, and they failed to seek justice on behalf of these victims and their families.
Let my colleague also read the comments, and if there is anything, yeah.
Actually, I wanted to add a bit on that follow-up on that same question. You have I think it's the Caribbean Court of Justice in the Caribbean region, which I believe has the Trinidad and Tobago and a few other countries in the Caribbean community. Is it helping in this process? Can it bring any form of justice to the people of Guyana?
The Caribbean Court of Justice is the apex court for Guyana. It's the ultimate court of appeal. And it has two jurisdictions. It has its original jurisdiction, which determines matters of disputes between that arise from the CARICOM Treaty, the Treaty of Chaguaramas and the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. And then it has its appellate jurisdiction, which hears appeals coming from member states that participated.
Reading 2 days ago. Now, I've been following some of that, and there has been budget debate, I think, for the last about 3 days. For the last 3 days or so. And this gentleman says, they are saying they're even taking away the cooperative lands that are owned by the black people. Is this just the same thing, taking away everything owned by the blacks, or is there a government plan that they are just using to bulldoze these cooperative lands away?
The government is trying to diminish the prospects of black people because they see black people as their opponents. They don't see us as citizens. There's no plan to take away Indian lands. This is a plan. I didn't hear the first part of the question. I assume you're talking about the announcement by Mr. Joseph Hamilton, who's the Minister of Housing, that they will seize cooperative lands. That is not legal. These lands are owned by people. They're not just owned by an organization with words. They're owned by people who put their money together, just like the slaves, and purchase or lease these lands. And the government claiming that they're going to take them back. Most of these cooperatives are owned by Afro-Guyanese citizens. That's a historical fact of the country. And so these lands are black people's land that they want to take away. I'm not sure what is the legal basis for the government doing that. I guess they're going to use their 1-seat majority in the parliament to pass some law to dispossess black people. And listen, in countries where you have a government that oppresses people like this, takes away land, dispossesses people, stifle them economically, don't want business to thrive, the government doesn't give contracts to black contractors. The government is using the procurement process to transfer the country to East Indians who support them. And when you have this level of oppression, it breeds violence. We are not proposing violence, but that is eventually what's going to happen. And we will have a situation like Sudan or Venezuela or some of these countries. Eventually, black people will not sit by idly and be trampled upon, be oppressed, and be dispossessed of their lands. This government has an obsession with land, right? And all of the prime lands that are owned by black people, they're trying to take away. The first thing they did when they came to power was after 4 large black businesses to take those businesses away, take them off their land, and without any basis. Any land that this government sold, that the former Granger administration sold, this government is trying to take it away. They're saying it is not legal. Without going through any judicial process, they want to dispossess people of their land, and it's going to lead to violence. And not only are they taking away the land, they're using the police to abuse people. Look what they did to that woman. She didn't commit any crimes. All she did was stand her ground and try to protect her home. And what they did, they put the police to brutalize her. And look at the viciousness in the government's action. They don't necessarily want these people to move only. They wanted to destroy their lives. They destroyed their furniture and buried it. They broke up appliances. One woman had a store there. She is the largest supplier of beers and beverages and so on. They crushed every cartoon of her beverages that she spent millions of dollars to purchase. They crushed it and they buried it. They didn't allow anybody to retrieve anything. And that's a war. That is not moving people because you want them out of the path of a road that is destroying people's lives maliciously and deliberately, because you want to set them back in life. You want them to be second-class citizens. You don't want them to strive economically. That's what this government is about. Suppressing and depressing black people and ensure they cannot thrive economically so that they could practice their agenda of ethnic supremacy over black people.
We seem to have issues with the time because as far as I see here, it's like even the 10 minutes that had been added onto our show are already up. But before we close this, we want to ask you, there are some comments here, and I want you to limited numbers. Are there any specifics that they have at least achieved in regards to fighting for the freedoms of their electorates?
Has one seat majority in parliament, then the opposition once, and they're governing the country like if they have the entire parliament, one seat. But what the government has been doing is marginalizing the opposition. They're using their majority to marginalize them. So the opposition, the government doesn't answer any questions from opposition. The government doesn't conduct business on Wednesdays when the law says it should be Members' Day. The government does not answer questions. They don't allow the opposition any leadway in parliament. Whenever the opposition members create a hell, they suspend them. Recently, they were suspended for like 6 from the parliament. The government abuses everything. This is a set of East Indian racists who lead this government, who believe in domination. They're like the KKK. They're employing all of the tactics of the racists in America, all of the tactics of South African race, all of the tactics of Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, their political advisors are the consultants that were the consultants for Donald Trump. You know, Mercury, which was so discredited in all of the investigations by the Mueller, by Special Counsel Mueller, those are the same people advising this government. They're the ones that influenced the Trump administration, put them in power. And so they are ruthless. They're running the country like if they're Vladimir Putin, and the international community is allowing them to get away with it in the name of democracy, because they have very powerful PR machinery where they can tell the world that the opposition is trying to steal the election. When the police, before this government came to
Gary again says 98% of all mega road, bridges and building contracts are given to East Indians, while mere 2% is given to black contractors, and most of these Indian contractors don't know squat about construction. You know how funny that is? $billion roads crumbling in less than 2 months after construction. Yes, I was looking actually at some of those, how long they stay, and some of them have not lived after for like a year. Some of them have not lived longer than a year. So in this whole process, how are you looking at making the situation better? Because it seems it's growing bigger day by day, and there could be civil unrest that might come after that. How are you strategically looking at addressing this issue?
Well, first of all, that is true. The government is giving these contracts to their supporters. They're not even some of them are not contractors, but they're getting contracts. It is a way the government is using to transfer Guyana's oil wealth to their East Indian supporters and stifle black people from participating in or benefiting from the oil and gas sector in Guyana. Now, like I said, we want the United States government to intervene. We want the United States government to have some sort of conference on Guyana where all of these issues can be ventilated, where the government can put forward its case and defend itself against the accusations of racism and corruption, blatant racial discrimination, and attempts to impose ethnic supremacy in the country and apartheid rule. And the opposition can present their case for the accusations, and the civil society can give its opinion, and diaspora leaders given its opinion. One of the main things that we see, the government is seeking about $100 million or $200 million loan from the U.S. Exim Bank to finance a gas to shore project, a gas to energy project, or whatever they call it, which is bringing natural gas from the sea to shore to help fuel Guyana's power grid and other aspects of the economy. we are against that loan, and we have communicated that to Exim Bank, and we have to the United States government and political representatives. Why? Because we're not against development, but we are against development that leaves black people behind, that leaves that leaves Indians that don't support the government behind. We want to force this government to make sure that
closing the show, but also with specific concerns now. We have lots of comments that we are not going to read when we apologize to our viewers, but we're going to print them, have them also responded to when we meet next week. But also to suggest, in as far as your discussion is concerned, apartheid seems, not just seems, but it's a big thing and it's a big concern. Next week, by God's grace, as we meet again, I want to ask you in regards to education. Is there education apartheid also? Because now, if we could use that word, you remember apartheid in South Africa? The whites had different schools, and also blacks had different schools. We want to interrogate on whether this apartheid also goes deeper beyond simply land grabbing and also evicting people. And I will want to ask you your closing remarks, and then we call it a day until next week. But also we have seen some comments in our comment section, where some colleagues were wondering on whether or not this show is on YouTube, and we pledge that minutes from now it's going to be uploaded on YouTube. The entire discussion can also proceed, and also the comments on Facebook. And if there are other questions, they can still share them with us. And perhaps as your colleagues who hail from Africa, we could see what best can we do to ensure that there is respect for human rights in the whole world. May you, Mr. Rickford, give us your closing remarks, and then pledge to the viewers that next week we shall be with you, same day, same time.
Well, again, thanks for having me. Like I said, we have a situation in Guyana where the government is committing atrocities against people of African descent. It's an anti-black government. It's an apartheid regime. And we are soliciting support of you and all of your colleagues, all of the young people all across Africa, and the government. We want you to petition your governments to pressure the African Union, pressure all of the international forums to bring about equality in Guyana, to ensure that the government respects the rights of African people in Guyana, and to cease cooperating with this government if they insist on being racist. We are brothers and sisters. Our foreparents came from the continent that you sit on. You might be part of my bloodline for all I know. And I think you, the people of Africa, should sympathize with what is happening in Guyana and ensure that we join hands, lock hands, just like the people of Guyana supported abolition of apartheid in South Africa, the liberation of Angola, and the liberation and fought for the independence of Namibia. We want to now solicit your support to help this modern-day apartheid regime in Guyana, to help us fight this modern-day apartheid regime in Guyana. And so we solicit your support. We want you guys in Africa to join the struggle so that we can receive in Guyana, and all of the people of Guyana can benefit from her wealth and her natural patrimony. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Rickford, finally, on your take-home notice, we shall interrogate the role of young people and women in this whole struggle for the fight for their rights and good governance. So next week, by God's grace, as we meet, please endeavor to bring us notes, as in what have they contributed, what has the contribution of women and young people been like in regards to fighting for their freedoms, because world over, it's young people and women that are majority. May you be blessed, and we